Game theory applied to the analysis of geopolitical and economic advantages and disadvantages, aimed at hypothesizing the convergence of mutual interests conducive to compromise, as well as identifying divergences. This is a summary of a preliminary simulation based on a matrix, similar to an Excel sheet, where each data cell interacts with the overall system, developed some time ago by my research group, Stratematica, and currently undergoing refinement. The goal is to identify a strategy to stabilize the international system in the near future, amid the ongoing global transformation. America and China. The former, though still a superpower, is now relatively small in its ability to prevent the rise of the latter as the leading global power. Therefore, it seeks to detach Russia from China. The latter needs time, approximately 15 years, to build the military strength required for global primacy, to modernize its economy, and to consolidate its global influence. Beijing adopts a strategic mindset based on the principle of flexible time, Sun Tzu. In contrast, Trump-led America operates on a strategy rooted in the requirement of short-term action, von Clausewitz. America and Russia. Moscow is entirely dependent on economic and financial flows from China following the sanctions. It has no intention of adopting a posture as a satellite of China, and for this reason, it is verbally open to signs of bilateral convergence from Washington. However, to detach itself from Beijing, it would need renewed access to international markets. Beijing is aware of this and will tighten the reins of Russian dependence while simultaneously pretending to support the freezing of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine and Russia. Both sides require a situation in which their respective leaders can proclaim victory, Moscow in terms of its special operation, and Kiev in terms of its ability to resist the Russian offensive. Beijing will ask Moscow to freeze the kinetic war, though not the threat, in order to prevent a concentrated redeployment of U.S. military power to the Pacific Front. Systemic scenario. The Trump administration has recognized the need for convergence with the Europeans, the G7, and Australia, as without them it would face a deterrence gap vis-a-vis China. Washington will nonetheless attempt a relationship of mutual interest with Russia, though not a formal alliance. Moscow, in turn, will leverage this U.S. initiative to extract greater benefits from China, conceding only minimal gains to America, among which, the freezing of the conflict in Ukraine is likely, though not, at this stage, a lasting peace. As a result, the timeline for stabilizing a new world order appears to be long. For China, this would represent a potential advantage, but only if it manages to consolidate control over the global south. The United States, the G7, and the Alliance of Pacific Democracies, despite the American misstep of threatening sanctions against India, will oppose this Chinese project both in Africa and Latin America. Therefore, it currently appears likely that a partial truce may emerge in the Northern Hemisphere, while new hotspots of conflict could arise in the Southern Hemisphere. Recommendations to the G7, compatible nations, the EU, and A. Consolidate the G7 by including Australia, India, initially as an observer, South Korea, and other compatible nations, in a G7+ format. B. Accelerate the EU's trade agreements by simplifying procedures with India, Mercosur, Mexico, etc. currently under negotiation, in order to later establish an overarching agreement on security. C. Integrate NATO and the alliances among Pacific democracies with broader collaborative extensions. Incidentally, the current Italian government appears aligned with this strategic hypothesis. The simplified recommendations outlined here are based on a 10 to 15-year scenario in which there is a risk that the process of elite replacement within authoritarian regimes may be conflictual, potentially bringing to power actors and rhetoric of an aggressive nature, manageable only through a broad global alliance among democracies and compatible nations, equipped with technological superiority and the resulting deterrence capacity. Updates.